Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Creative Belief Podcast. This podcast is a curated collection of conversations with creators and creatives who believe that creativity can change the world. My name is Alex. I get to be one of the co-hosts, and I'm here with my buddy Josh. Josh, how's it going today?
Going really well. I'm excited about our guest today. We'll get into a little bit about him, but genuinely one of the most creative people I know and just one of the best humans I've ever known too. So excited to talk a little bit more with Christian.
Yeah, 100%. So today on the show, we have Christian Barreno. Christian is an independent cinematographer, and he's the co-owner of an event space that's in development. Josh and I have both had the pleasure of working with Christian on creative teams over the last 10 years in a variety of different contexts, right? On teams, I've brought Christian in to do some contract work at places that we've been a part of, and Christian truly is a wildly talented creative. He creates some of the most beautiful visuals that I have ever seen. So Christian, dude, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Alex and Josh. I mean, we go way back.
We do.
So thank you for the kind words. I'm excited to be here and support you guys in this podcast. So for sure.
Yeah, man, we appreciate that a ton. We're excited for where today's going to go.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. And you've always just been just a great person to be around. So excited for some more ears to get to know Christian. And let's start there, though. Let's start with your backstory. Tell us a little bit about yourself, places you grew up, just what first exposed you to creativity, what drew you into creating, things like that.
Yeah. So I'm basically a pastor's kid. Most of my life, I grew up in that environment, but my family were from Los Angeles. And so from an early age there, I was really drawn towards music. And so, my dad bought me a drum set and I was getting lessons. And so music was really like the doorway into creativity and specifically like church music. Um,
Mm.
so fast forward, second grade, my dad moved us to Kansas to open a Latino church, a Spanish speaking church in the middle of nowhere, Kansas. And music was my escape. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
cultural clash. We were all alone. All of our family, cousins, aunts and uncles were back in LA. So music was like something that I really depended on. But also my dad depended on me musically as well for church worship and stuff. So
Yeah.
once I started learning other instruments, like piano and like saxophone in school, I started figuring out ways to start express my own creativity and not just church creativity. So fast forward another 12 years after being in Kansas, my parents moved to Indiana, and I made the decision to follow kind of their tracks a little bit and finished my undergrad at Indiana Wesleyan. Studied media design, which was kind of a broad program, do a little bit of photography, animation, web design. And I was really drawn to photography and really dove into studio lighting, really drove into how do I edit, do a lot of post. So yeah, college and on was really photography. And sprinkled throughout my time in college, I did a lot of live sound and live production work.
Yeah.
And so that eventually opened some doors for me to tour the country for 6 months out of college with the high school assembly program as a TD, as a technical director. So I got to design the lighting for it, did audio engineering for it, did some video work for it as well. It was a very low budget program. So, everyone was contributing more than maybe what we were paid to do. because we were
Yeah.
very passionate about it. So when that ended, I moved back to Indy and I'm like, what now? You know, like my whole life
A
I've been
great
involved.
question.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been involved in church my whole life, as a volunteer type of thing. And then I thought, throughout the course of my life up to then, I thought maybe I was going to be a professional musician, maybe I was going to stay in the church and like study in a place like Hillsong or Bethel at the time.
Hmm.
But my parents were like, no, we don't want you to be a starving artist. Like, we want you to be like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And so, yeah, my first 2 years of college, I was like pre-med, then pre-nursing, and then that
Yeah.
dwindled down to media design.
That's
So,
so awesome.
yeah, but um, I've always kind of now looking back now, I see how creativity was always like a part of me, whether it was through music, graphic
Yeah.
design, whether it was for church, through church environments, or even like with myself, like the things that I wanted to learn for myself and explore
Yeah.
my own voice. So yeah, so after I came back to Indiana from that tour, I worked at a place called Marquise as a tech and did some
Hmm.
broadcast work, some live sound work, traveled a lot. It got exhausting,
Yeah.
crazy hours. And then an opportunity came up for me to apply at a big church in Brownsburg at Connection Point.
Hmm.
And by some miracle, I got the job
No
because
way.
I
Was
had
not a
never,
miracle.
Not a miracle. And
yeah.
I have to say really fast, the bar was super low because I was the guy before Christian. I was the guy who left, and then Christian showed up, and everyone was like, dude was just sent from heaven to us.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
not to interrupt you, but I was in that interview process. And when we went over your portfolio, I was like, is this a joke? Like, we don't deserve to have this guy on our team. So,
Man,
man, you
I
are way more talented than what we thought we would get. And super grateful that you took the gig.
yeah, I'm grateful that I was able to, you know, start working there and honestly it was a learning experience for me. I think for all of us. Everyone on
Yeah,
the team
absolutely.
there. Up to then I'd never really done interviews or testimonials. Yeah, I dabbled in video, for
Hmm.
church or like even on tour, just vlogging and maybe did a promo video.
Yeah.
Um, but I really only relied on just like what I knew and my
Yeah.
eye for
Yeah.
whatever it was, whether it
Yeah.
was composition or lighting. Um, and so it was a little daunting for me to start like, okay, full-time video for this church. There's probably a lot of needs, probably a lot of different projects. But starting in like the winter, it was like super slow. And so that was like such a nice thing for me to kind of start getting settled in and start to you know, push myself and push our team to
Yeah.
learn more about filmmaking, especially in the church context, but also like how do we all just keep investing in our own creativity, in our skill set, and then how do we come together? So like
Yeah.
Josh, like even though you were a graphic designer, you were still on set with me every once in a while, helping and
Yep.
like, feedback and everything and then the same with like everyone else on the team. So yeah,
Yeah.
my time at Connection Point was like the first time I, really focused specifically on filmmaking. And I discovered a lot about that and myself, even on a technical side of things, I had never had my hands on a cinema camera before. And so
Mm.
when the Blackmagic Ursa first gen finally arrived in the mail, it worked for like a week and then we had to return it and get a
Yeah.
second one.
Classic black magic.
Yeah. And then like building a studio and learning like what are the tools that we need? What are the tools that I'd like to have? And like what are the tools that are going to help me express what's already like inside of my
Yeah.
brain? Um, inside of my heart even, and like how do I use that to tell stories or to inspire people. So yeah, I mean, I was there for I want to say what, almost 4 years, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
sounds
was
right.
there for a while. Yeah. And in that time, we got a new pastor, big turnover, that's pretty common. And then I landed at Traders Point. Um,
I helped steal Christian.
yes.
Darn right. Over a lunch at Fat Dan's here in Indianapolis, I
Yeah.
introduced someone to Christian and the theft began.
Yeah. That was an interesting time. That year I had like, became a homeowner and and then I'm like, I feel like I need to transition my job, and scary times, but it was probably the best decision that I
Mm,
made at the time.
Hmm.
And it was just a continuation, at least like this was all pre-COVID. I mean, so like
Yeah.
2018 until COVID was like a fun and exciting ride for me.
Yeah.
Like, I spent so much time prepping and like trying to learn and trying to push. And then it felt like, okay, now I can just play for a while and like really
mm,
explore um, the things that I want to do and the things that maybe the church is open to. And
Hmm.
then there was a much bigger team too. A lot of people that were passionate, a lot of people that were talented, um, a lot of people with vision. And so it was always fun to brainstorm together, to explore ideas, knowing that if we can all just come together, we could probably make it happen. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
and selfishly, that's something that I had always wanted. I always wanted to work in a team environment and not feel like I'm the only one that does what I do. And it's not that other people are not capable of supporting, it's just a lot of people may not get it and may not
Yeah.
know
Mhm.
how to contribute. And so it was a nice time for me to kind of experience that, and also be there for other people, be there for other people
Mm,
that needed what the film team provided. So yeah, and 2020 was kind of like the whole world, you know, changed. And so
Hmm.
did our work and our job. And thankful that I had a job, you know. But like a lot of people during 2020, you kind of start thinking of like what you really want to do and like what you are willing to settle for or
Yep.
push for. And so after 2020, like, I was kind of reaching this moment creatively where I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep doing church film the way that
Hmm.
I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
Um, I love the kinds of projects we do. They're fun, visually, they're exciting, but it's like the same kind of rinse and repeat,
Yeah.
and so it came to the point where I was asking God for just an opportunity that would stretch me, and this independent film like fell in my lap. And so I said yes to that. I probably should have read my contract a little bit better. But it was the most difficult experience I've ever had as a filmmaker. But
mm,
the fact that me and my crew got through it was like the most rewarding and it was the most defining moment for me till that point where I'm like, you know what, I can do this. Like if I can
Yeah.
survive 30 days of like this mess and like this whole process and all of that, like on a spiritual level, on a creative level, on a personality level, psychological level, like all the levels, really. Because
Yeah.
like there was a point where like every day I was on the verge of like wanting to quit or like break out in tears,
mm.
and I'm like, God, I need you to give me peace because if I lose it on set, my crew's gonna walk out because
Yeah.
everyone's
Well,
already on that
Yeah.
verge.
yeah.
So that was like a huge process of like kind of character building for me and trying to be that peaceful resource for people on set. Even
Yep.
though I was also juggling being a DP and cam opping and all these other things that, people had multiple roles. So,
Right. The other duties as assigned.
yeah. So, got through that, felt like, man, I could do this. And so, after that, I started a conversation with my boss at Traders. And that ended up being like a 5 6 month long process of me, all right, I'm going to transition out of this role. And it's going to be a good thing for everyone, I think. Like I'm still eventually later on, I would be, doing some contract work for them and other places
Yeah.
too, even Connection Point. And so, and it's been great to see like how there are new people involved and, new ways of doing things, but it's also, yeah, I can still see that, I left my mark in some
Mhm.
places and certain
Yeah.
things. And that's just a testament to um, people saying yes to some of my ideas, and also people allowing me to kind of explore with them, you know, whatever it is that we were doing, whether it was film or live event or even just building a crew.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a
Yeah.
nutshell, that's my story. I've been freelancing for 2 years now. Huge roller coaster. Um, Winter is super
Yeah.
slow, I have found out, not just in the church, but definitely in the freelance world.
Yep.
Um, but it's exciting to meet a lot of different people and build those relationships, the networking. Work is different for sure. For me as a DP, like at Traders Point and Connection Point, I mean, there were projects where I was director, DP, editor, sound. Sometimes I was just DP or sometimes just directing. Um, so all those different roles helped me to, be able to offer full service for a while. And then I decided to
Yep.
just focus on DPing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now a lot of those things just I'm brought into the process a little bit later on, so I'm not necessarily in concept developing, but I am able to kind of like still be in that inspirational phase where we're figuring out what do things look like, what do things feel like, and like what is it going to take on a logistical level to accomplish that. So, yeah.
That's awesome, dude. There's so much in Christian's story that I love. There are so many parts that I had even like. I remember I forgotten about. I contracted Christian when I was working at a nonprofit here in Indy that focused on organ tissue and eye recovery. And I was like, "Hey, dude, I need you to come in. We're doing this like brand film, but also I need you to film a tissue recovery. Are you cool with that?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I started in pre med, and like I thought that stuff was awesome."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, because I definitely don't want to be in that OR, and I'm really glad that you will be in it.
Yeah.
Um,
It
but
wasn't it wasn't my first time with a cadaver, I'll tell you
that's a line right there. Maybe that's the title of this episode right there.
that.
Oh my, that's so good. And I
It
think
is.
one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Did you ever feel like so like working in the church? I think one of the
Yeah.
things that you did that I loved was you really like redefine in a lot of ways for churches what film and art could be, right? I think churches had done lots of basic films, testimony films, these things that like we kind of got used to seeing. And then when I saw some of your work, it was like, this is kind of what the church used to do back during the days of like the Renaissance,
Yeah.
right? And pushing art and kind of being a leader. Did you ever find it like challenging or did you ever butt heads with people in wanting to like push that forward and create new concepts and try to bring a new form of art to the world of like traditional church media?
Absolutely. I mean, if there was one red tape in church, it was that. It was
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries was always a huge risk. Um, and most of the time, it would be pushing the aesthetic, or even pushing the type of story. Because a lot of the things that I was seeing in church and that maybe church has had been comfortable with was a lot of the gimmicks, in a lot of the marketing. So even a
Yeah.
testimony would be like, my life was a mess before Jesus, but then I stepped into this church,
Yeah.
insert church name, and then my whole life changed. And while that may be true, the format and the delivery was very much like a brand video or a marketing
Yeah.
campaign slogan or something. So it just felt like noise. It felt like, we weren't inspiring anymore. We were just informing people
Hmm.
of the life change that was happening. And so, yes, creativity still inspires no matter what. So people were
Yep.
still inspired by these types of videos and people were still challenged. Maybe people saw themselves in those stories, and that's totally okay and awesome. But my inner artist, my inner Christian was like, this I'm like a huge skeptic. Like this isn't even
Yeah.
reaching me. I can see right through
Yeah.
it. So I want to create work and I want to inspire people in ways that inspire myself as a creator. And so films, movies, shows, music, concerts, there are elements that I can recognize that moved me. And that was the basis of me wanting to push the church film is like, if it moved me, I know it's going to move somebody else because I
Yeah.
know how hard it is for things to move me. And
Hmm.
so that was kind of like redefining what I wanted to do with church film. It's like I want to move people. I don't want to just wow them either. I want to move people.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to believe that I am creating work that's specifically tailored to a certain group. I want anybody who sees this to be moved in some way. Because
Right.
again,
So
it's like even when you like watch like your favorite movie, you are not the only person that is watching it. And
Right.
people that are like you are not the only kinds of people that are watching it and being touched by it. It's like everyone in the whole world.
hmm.
And so when you look at art from that perspective, um, man, it's like the possibilities are really endless. It's
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
challenging and daunting, but
yeah.
it's also like a mandate for a creative. It's like, don't don't create for just one person. Like
Mm.
create in a way that's authentic, in a way that um everyone, is able to see it. And that's kind of what I loved about church film too, in big churches, I would say. I'd have to say that, is that
Yeah.
their platforms are much bigger. Their reach is much bigger. And so that was always a huge draw for me too, for what
Yeah.
we did. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Can I ask you kind of a follow up to what you just said there? I think one thing as creative people that oftentimes we run into is kind of that compromise almost within our work versus
Yeah.
like what moves us or what we think might be a great fit versus maybe what our client fit is or what they like. And
Yeah.
I remember being in some of those conversations with you, or being around you post those conversations you had where you felt some of that frustration because you wanted to, move things in a different direction or just continue to move us forward in design and all of that. And, but how do you personally handle some of that? I don't, some people might call it criticism. It might be a
Yeah.
little bit of that, but honestly, I'm more concerned with, or more asking, like, how do you personally, when you come to that tension within yourself of like, okay, this is what the client wants. This isn't necessarily what I think is best, but we got to kind of figure out the best way forward here.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely feel like I've grown quite a bit in that area because maybe even the times when we were working together, I was very passionate about my ideas and I was willing to defend them, in the boxing
Hmm.
ring. Like I will
Yeah.
fight
And
someone.
I had your back like every time.
Yeah.
So
Well, thanks. I know. It
yeah.
was just us two. No, it's awesome. Yeah, but I think now, after all these years, my approach is always like, I want to be a collaborative. I want to collaborate with a client or an agency in my case, or a director producer. And so that's also recognizing that, they see something in me. That's why they're bringing me on. And
Hmm.
I, in return, need to see something in them. And I need to be able
Wow.
to
Yeah.
trust their vision to a certain extent, and
Yeah.
trust their methods, and learn how to have this symbiotic relationship, not just on set, crucial on set because there's always egos, but
Yep.
also
Yeah.
creatively. And
Yeah.
more often than not, yeah, I'm doing things in a way that I wouldn't have done them, but I'm also finding pockets of time and moments to not only get to know them, but to inspire them with my own creative vision for
Hmm.
other
Yeah.
things too. It's like, oh, this is so
Yeah.
awesome. Like, I want to, someday do a project like this, and I'll send them references, I'll send them ideas, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm like, that's it. I'm just like planting those seeds,
Yeah.
because that's the only way we can like grow together creatively, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
grow the
Yeah. That's really
relationship
good.
creatively,
Well,
versus
and
just butting heads.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's
That's good.
so much in that too. You said like that trust that you're building, right? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like as a business owner, one of the things I've had to really work on is that trust building before we ever say yes to a project, because I want to have a business partner. I want to have someone that we're helping build a brand for, that we believe in the work that they do, but they also trust us that we're going to deliver. And we want to be able to push the boundary. We want to like push them out of their comfort zone if that's necessary, but we also like have to listen to them, and that trust of like knowing who that client is, how you can partner together before you ever say yes, I think is
Hmm.
so critical. And I think we've been fortunate enough as a studio to be in a spot where we can say yes to the work that makes sense for us. We don't have to take on every project that comes our way.
Yeah.
I know that's not the case for everyone when they get
Yeah.
started, right? Sometimes you have to pay the bills. But
Hmm.
that is
Yeah.
learning of like, how do we, and trust me, we're still not like, some days it's still hard to pay the bills as a business
Yeah.
owner. Uh, but like, I've learned so much about that, having to build that trust with the partners that we choose, and being okay with sometimes taking the back seat to let their vision come to life. And then, like you said, that builds trust in us, and it leads to other work. It leads to ongoing
Exactly.
relationships. It leads to the next project with them.
Yeah.
So that's so good. I think every creative needs to hear that, because we all do have egos. Josh having the largest on the call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very big ego. Well, and I think what's so great, about that is like, even if it doesn't lead to more work, it leads to better understanding.
Yeah.
So I can understand your thought and your creativity on that. I can understand where you're coming from a little more, and they can understand me in that process. And again, it just leads to more trust, better understanding, and hopefully, I mean, a better partnership moving forward. But even if not, like, just that understanding it can be a huge thing.
Yeah. Do you guys find that, like, in that process of like taking on projects that you don't have time to build that trust, do you ever consciously feel like you need to protect like your vision as an artist, period? Like your brand, even? Like I struggle with that
Yeah.
too, as a DP. It's like my work is a certain type. The kind of work I want to do is vastly different than a lot of the commercial work I'm doing now in corporate
Yep.
work. So I'm always going through that script in my brain of like, okay, this is not what you want to do,
Yeah.
but you're gonna
Yeah.
Yeah.
still go, full force no matter
Yeah.
what.
And
It's almost like you want to get the project done and then tell the client, don't put my name on this. Don't tell anyone I did
right.
this.
Yeah.
Well, because I
I
think we're
understand that.
always thinking about like, for me, I'm always
Yeah.
thinking about like building that portfolio, showcasing the work that I do. And when I enter a project like that, I'm like, well, this is great. Like, I'm making money, but like, I'm not going to put this on my website. I'm not going to put this out as like portfolio work.
Yeah.
and so there is that inner like how do I make this something that I would be proud of,
Yeah.
that I would be willing to share, and what are the right moments to fight for the creative vision,
Hmm.
and what are the right moments to take a back seat. And I've gotten it
Yeah.
very similar to you, Christian. Like I was a very passionate creative in a lot of spaces, and probably burned a lot of bridges because of that early on in my career, because I was
Yeah.
going to fight to the death for my idea, because I was right. Obviously,
Yeah.
I knew everything about creating. And so I've had to learn that a ton of like, hey, it's okay if my idea is not the idea. There are ways to partner in ideas and to build things together. And
Yeah.
I think that's where
Yeah.
true creativity gets better, is when we build with each other instead of
Hmm.
just trying to be the center of the idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's really
and
good.
I'm sure the funny thing is I think if all of us as creatives were honest, we would probably have a lot of projects that we had to pay the bills with
Yeah,
and cover,
absolutely.
Yeah.
but at the same time, like we don't want to showcase those. It's almost like we should have a secondary tab on our website that just is called "Pay the Bills Portfolio," and
Yeah.
here's the work
Yes.
I can, here's the work I
Yeah.
Here's what
can
I'm
do.
capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Like I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily proud of it, but hey, if you want to pay me, whatever, just to crank this out for you, like I can feed my kids another week. I guess that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's okay to, admit that what we do is also, providing a service. And
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
it is transactional to a certain extent.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's a lot of maturing and growing is like realizing that your vision as a creative, like the things you're passionate about, like you're still, feeding that part of you and you're still safeguarding it, you know.
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah,
share it with everyone and not everyone's going to be able to receive it, especially, in the marketplace.
definitely. Yeah.
But I don't know, it still permeates a little bit through the work.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that I don't put on my portfolio, but then there's certain things that I'm like, like what can I do? Can I do my own edit? Can I do my own grade on it? Can I do something with it? Because that's
Yeah.
just me. That's me as a visual artist. Is like I just want to, present any visual with my touch on it, in a way
Yep.
that like it's not a matter of just being proud of. It's like, wow, I like see, it's like a mirror. I see where I'm at.
Mm,
I see myself in
yeah.
it. I'm comfortable with putting that out there.
Yeah,
But
that's good, man. And I think there's a lot of value too for creatives in, right? So like we've started Creator Studio. That's this agency that we have. There's a specific type of work that we kind of do. But then
yeah,
Josh and I both have like individual creative pursuits. And we kind of have these like personal creative brands, whether it's through social media, whatever it is, where we can
yeah,
share some of that work that's more of like our passion type stuff, right? Like we both love racing. We do a
yeah,
lot of work around that. We don't need racing clients. We would love that, but it doesn't
yeah,
like always make sense in our model.
right.
But we love to do that. So we're going to share that. I think that's really critical for creatives to know that like there is the service side and there is the passion side, and they don't have to be completely separated. You can fulfill both of those in your creative pursuits and still attract business, still attract clients, and then hopefully push them into deeper relationship where they see all of your potential and all that you have to offer, and then want to go like on a further journey with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's so good. So Christian, as you think about creatives, right? You've done your own thing for 2 years. And like you said, it's a roller coaster. It's tons of ups and downs.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone who's thinking like, maybe it's time for me to take that leap and start my own thing? What is something you would tell them as they consider that?
Yeah, I think do it. I mean,
Mm,
do it. Give yourself that opportunity, that chance to put yourself in a situation where you are forced to meet new people, to do work that maybe you didn't want to do. And in my case, I'm focused really on being a cinematographer, but there are projects where I'm the gaffer, or I'm like, when I first started out, even just as a cam operator or something like that, something way below like the role that I want to be.
Yeah.
But it's important. It's important to meet new people, to build your crew. And what I mean by build your crew is like you start working with, familiar faces over and over again, and you start to build that creative relationship where it's like, I know I can trust you and depend on you to help me execute this vision. And
Yeah.
so that to me is like the biggest thing is like just do it. Run, like
Mm.
meet new people, discover new ways. And you'll, a year or two down the line, you'll see how much you've grown, you know,
Hmm.
and you'll probably have a better idea of what you want to do. Maybe 5 years ago I wanted to film movies and then I got to film one and now I'm like, yeah, I don't have to do a movie. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm a little bit more of a short form guy. But yeah, I mean, I'm like not holding on to all these things like, with a tight fist or a clenched fist. Like I'm learning to let go and just let this wave like take me wherever it goes.
Yeah.
Obviously, be smart about it, financially,
Mhm. Right.
and relationship wise as well. But it is a ride, and it's okay if the ride ends. It's
Yeah.
okay if one
Yes.
day you're like, I need to take a 9 to 5 for a while, or I
Yep.
need
Yeah.
to jump into other ventures. Like we brought up like the event space. Like, when I quit my job, I sold my home. I had this money. I couldn't secure another loan to buy a home. So I was like, I need to invest this somehow. And this opportunity came about. Scariest decision of my life,
Yeah.
but I'm taking that risk and I'm in it
Yeah.
now. And so I can't get out of it. I have to see it through, which
Yep.
is scary and exciting, but I
Yep.
just have to do it. So I guess that's my
Mhm.
advice. Just do it. Nike.
Yeah, dude, that's so good. Let's
Nike.
go.
Might want to cut that
Not
part out.
sponsored by Nike, but
Right.
we're open
Right.
to a sponsorship,
Yeah.
Nike, if you'd like to
Free shoes,
give us a
we're all
call.
down.
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
Started with Christian.
Yeah.
Oh man. uh that's all really great, man. This has been a great conversation. I think um one of the things that there's been I don't know, maybe in your space there's a lot of talks of it. I know that for you specifically, we're interested in knowing like where you see creativity going in the next five
Yeah.
years, whether specifically within some of the things that you do or just in general,
Yeah.
where you see things going.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have I'll have to say like with the rise of AI and all of these things and then tools just becoming more accessible. Like cameras are cheaper,
Hmm.
Hmm.
YouTube is like a great resource to anyone can learn. No one has to go to college anymore for what we do. Like no one
Yeah.
has to go to film school. Like I mean the resources are out there. People
Alex didn't go to college.
yeah.
Okay. Settle down.
There
We
you
all know this, Josh.
go.
Idiot.
So the resources are becoming more and more accessible, but there's a lot of I want to say there's not a lot of authenticity. We're losing that too. So I
Hmm.
see in the next five
Yeah.
years like a huge pushback, intentional pushback of people going back to their creative roots. We're seeing it on a cultural level. People are going back to their
Yep.
cultural roots for good and bad reasons. People are
Yep.
going back to rediscovering themselves. I feel like there's a creative season of like midlife crisis that everyone has to go through, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
more than once.
Yeah.
Like I was a diehard musician, and then I became a filmmaker. Like
Hmm.
some people can easily translate that. For other people, it's like I did nothing for 2 years and I had to relearn everything. So
Yeah.
I think creativity in general is just like gonna push back more towards like authentic creative representation. Like people, even in the music, like people want original things and people want
Yeah.
cultural things and people and work that's coming from their own background. And so that's where I see things going on a technical level. Things are still moving towards that direction of like everyone has the same tools now, which is fine.
Yep.
And no one needs to gatekeep that. Um,
Yeah.
and great. Love that we're seeing more things done at a much higher quality now and lower prices and things like that. That's a good thing to a certain extent. But the voices that really are going to shine are the authentic voices. People that
Yeah.
have a sense of direction, a sense of perspective, and that's going to be the thing that survives, I think, or
Yeah.
does
That's
really
good.
well.
That's true.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's so good. So eloquently said too. Christian, what's on the horizon for you personally, professionally? We know you're working on this event space. Is there anything that you're like super stoked about coming out of winter that you are excited to get working on?
Yeah, I mean, my calendar's pretty wide open. There are a couple projects here and there that I've booked, but I'm excited to just like amp up the work this
Yeah.
year. Like I uh I feel like I've established a pretty decent amount of connections in Indy and around the area. So I'm excited to pursue those further. And like I really want to shoot more conceptual work as well. And so I'm excited for that. And this other business, that's really what is kind of at the forefront right now for me
Yeah.
is I can't wait till we finish, the remodeling and the construction and get like the marketing materials set and push this thing. And hopefully it'll be a place where people can gather, not just for a private event, but also I want to be able to have a space where I can host other creatives, for
Yeah.
get-togethers, networking, let's watch a film,
Yep.
anything. Like that's something that, I touched on earlier is like I really love a team atmosphere and a community. And so that's something that I hope to contribute with this other business.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's
It's
awesome.
awesome.
Anytime you host anything, we will be there. It will be incredible.
Me
Getting to
too.
hang out with you and be in your company is just fantastic, and I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Likewise. Awesome
thanks,
working.
man,
I'm working with you and also awesome hanging out with you guys.
for sure, dude. Well, thank you so much for this. Thanks for this conversation. This has been super awesome. I've had a blast. Um, then yeah, it's been such a fun conversation. And we'll link to Christian's work in the show notes. Connect with him, reach out to him if you've got
Yes,
work.
please do.
Yeah, this is the guy, right?
Yeah.
This is the guy you want to give a call. So we want to thank you all for joining us on this podcast. We hope the conversation has been a reminder that you are a creative who was made to create. And we would love to have you do all the subscription things, right? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, follow the show there. You can also follow our design studio, Creator Studio on Instagram. That's at Creator Studio, and creator is spelled CRTR. And that's been it. Thank you guys both so much. This has been such a great conversation.
Thank you guys.
Thank you a lot, Christian.